morning. We'd like to welcome you on behalf of the Arab Center for the fourth session of the Arab PhD doctors. I hope you had some rest after your long journeys, and I wish you a pleasant stay in Doha. This is an important uh, forum for the PhD candidates to meet to discuss different sources and to enrich their PhD theses. This conference, in its last three sessions, which is held once every 2 years. Some 70 participants have taken part in it so far from different disciplines. In this current session, we have 68 researchers out of 250 applications distributed to 18 different disciplines. Congratulations for your successful application. We are proud here at the center to have this number of students, and this is in line with our work and contribution to science research in a multidisciplinary manner. The center, since its establishment at the end of 2010, has taken it upon itself to contribute to scientific research and academic writing through annual academic activities in different subjects which discuss contemporary issues and current affairs. The Arab Center has until now issued more than 650 titles and translated more than 170 books from foreign languages. The center also has 7 journals peer-reviewed in different humanities, historical studies, future studies, public administration, and other disciplines. The importance of this conference lies in the fact that it allows for researchers to meet together and to have a close-hand look at the work of their co-researchers, and the conference also contributes to introducing knowledge produced in the languages of the countries that the candidates study in. We hope that these research papers and dissertations will be published by the center for the benefit of the Arab audience. This is just a quick glance of this conference's outlook, and it's part of the research agenda of the center. And it is incumbent upon us all now to remind ourselves of the systematic war and the genocide inflicted on the people of Gaza, the Palestinian issues. The Palestinian issue is one of the issues that we are concerned with here, and it's not confined to the scientific community. It is the central cause for the Arab people with all its direct and indirect repercussions. We as academics cannot isolate what's happening in Palestine in general and Gaza Strip in particular, what is taking place in elsewhere in the world, the consequences of what's been happening in Gaza has raised many issues in the Western world so far as respecting the academic traditions and the freedom of expression and the non-interference in the research agendas. We have seen many students being arrested from university campuses, professors being fired from their positions. This raises many questions on the role of universities and the issue of neutrality, and to what extent is this a free space for students. The experiences of many students raises the prospect of the responsibility of all of us elsewhere in the world to meet and exchange ideas on these and other issues from the perspective of humanities and other studies. The ethical questions raised and the persistent questions on the workers in the field of humanities will persist for many generations to come. And we invited Dr. Azmi Bishara to give to speak to us this morning on the subject of the Palestinian issue, McCarthyism and anti-Semitism. Before we start with this lecture, Dr. Azmi doesn't need any introductions, but he is the Director General of the Arab Center for Research and Policy Studies, and as is an Arab thinker and has many writings in the fields of philosophy and social studies. He has written extensively on the Palestinian cause, Israel, and issues to do with Pan-Arabism. The Arab Center has published some of his works on religion and secularism, the Arab Spring, ISIS, and also in response to the question, what is popularism, and some theoretical and practical aspects of the question of state philosophy, and we are hoping to publish the second volume of this book. Also, he has some publications in English on Salafism, concepts and context, sectarianism without sect, and he has a trilogy on Arab Spring, which is a theoretical analytical study as well as a historical documentation of the revolutions in Tunisia, Egypt, and Syria. I invite Dr. Azmi Bishara to deliver his lecture. Good morning and welcome to all of you, especially our guests from the PhD students from some Western universities. We hope this will be an opportunity for them to interact with our faculty and students and to interact between yourselves. This is an opportunity for us all. My talk this morning will be related to the current situation, and And I was asked to deliver the speech only 4 days ago, and so I prepared some notes which I think are related to the reality in Western universities. I will not be alluding to the background of this war and the sufferings of the Palestinian people. Enough has been said about that, and it will be a unnecessary repetition if we do that. It will only be rhetorical repetition. But I'll focus on the main theme regarding the current confrontation going on at the level of the Western public opinion and the operations of displacement, and to divert attention from solidarity with the Palestinian people, whom the suffering and the resistance of Gaza had returned it to the question of anti-Semitism and the language and discourse used in the Israeli excessive behavior. In other words, to change the theme or the subject, to turn any actors or any people who feel they are in solidarity with the Palestinian people and Palestinian cause to something else, to put them in a self-defense position. This is an organized attempt. This is not random. There are those who have been working for decades to achieve that, to turn solidarity with the Palestinian people to other issues like anti-Semitism, the language, the discourse, and hatred of Israel, etc. And so far as I can follow, I think I've been doing that closely. What's happening in Western universities, like a new McCarthyism. You remember Senator Joseph McCarthy, who was in his days trying to face up to the communist threat, and it lasted for about 7 years. And now it's not, this wave is not confined to the United States, it's in the entire Western world, and it went as far as interfering in people's private affairs to expose their solidarity with communism, because it was perceived at that time that there is a real threat of communism achieving victory in the 50s. This was a very strong wave. Some steps taken by Congress reminds us of us the investigation or interrogation of 3 university lecturers at the House of Representatives, and a committee was formed for this hearing into the affairs of American universities. The type of the hearing which was done with the Harvard president and Pennsylvania and Massachusetts universities, the 3 ladies, the hearing was exactly the same. If you watch the previous videos of Joseph McCarthy, the kind of questions, the interrogation, the grilling, the demagogue, and the hearings, well, which is, of course, politicians, they masters of this game, but academics are naive in comparison. They may make mistakes, like the president of Harvard. She made some mistakes when she was interrogated by a very aggressive representative. They shouted at people, students shout in your campus, Intifada, we have to globalize Intifada. I've never heard this in my life. Or they say from the river to the sea. What have you done to stop this call for genocide? She hesitated. She did not discuss the questionnaire whether this is genocide or not. She took the question at face value that we will deal with it if the speech or the discourse turns into action, and this is true. And the law will only criminalize you when you translate a call into action. So they said to her that you want genocide to appear before you take action. She was even more hesitant. I think she is academically naive. She is discussing the terminology rather than discuss the essence of the matter. From the river to the sea, this has nothing to do with genocide. By the say, the Israelis have the same slogan. They say Israel's from the river to the sea, like the Palestinians say free Palestine from the river to the sea. So instead of discussing the core of the matter, the essence of the matter, and this will be a main premise in my speech today. In our discussion of the new McCarthyism, I think it will not be successful because almost all universities have done enough to make this kind of thing work a bit late in the day. Yet it will be a mistake if we stop at the formalities and the determinants and the borders of the freedom of expression rather than discussing the essence of the matter. Is this genocide? Is this anti-Semitism? These are subjects we should not shy away from discussing. Otherwise, we will stop and limit ourselves to the freedom of expression, although this is a given right, especially when it comes to scientific research. So therefore, the campaign which is being waged now at the level of universities, this is my own analysis, has a few aims. One is displacement, is to divert attention from a time when the Gazan people are slaughtered, to use doxing trucks to divert attention to these students and put them in a self-defense position. And some says, I did not expect this, and some start discussing the formalities of the freedom of speech. I think this is the first thing. The second thing, or the second objective, is to score settlement first with the revolution which has been taking place lately in the positions of the youth in the West vis-a-vis the Palestinian cause, and that has accumulated and it's been gathering momentum, and it's likely to be very impactful in 10 years' time or something, because there are these youth who have graduated from the best and elite universities, and they will reach high position in the administration and the establishment. So this is something they fear. Usually students will be vetted regarding the policies of one of the two parties, like Democratic or Republican, but this is at the same time settling scores with the liberal trend in universities, because some have been doing something to curtail the freedom of expression and contributed to the populism on the two issues, the gender equality and political correctness regarding the gay community rights, etc. In most American universities, the liberal trend has become the one who is curtailing and limiting the freedom of expression, so much so that Some university professors lost their jobs during the interview when they expressed ideas on gay rights and things like that, and to the extent that they have been subjected to political coercion. For example, sometimes they went into the details of these things and came up with documents with 400 pages on self-censorship. Like, for example, Harvard recently, a member of the faculty was interviewed, and she said, we can say there are many genders, but only two sexes, masculine and feminine. The whole world was turned upside down. They said, how did you say, why did you say that? So much so that nobody was willing to work as an assistant to her, and she lost her job eventually. So, so now there is the question, Saz, when you are defending the Palestinian cause, where have you been when there were some liberal issues on the brink? So far as we are concerned, the main issue is this is a political battle to cover up the crimes by the Israelis, which is supposed to ignite human and humanitarian solidarity, and is not an issue of anti-Semitism. The anti-Semitism is no longer a central issue in Europe and America. It was in the 19th century, but after World War II, it has no longer been the issue. There is no unanimity on this issue, and even if there is some sort of anti-Semitism, even at the level of the racial theories, these have been bankrupt and no longer have any place in real life, in social life, or at the academic level. But there is the issue of anti-Zionism before that, and in order to understand what's happening at the level of universities, a few days ago I received a letter from the Committee of Education, which was from the House of Representatives to Columbia University, which is requesting the university to respond to more than 100 questions. They have to work really hard and exert a lot of effort to respond to it regarding the people who were engaged in practices of anti-Semitism. Like a lecturer in a classroom was being anecdotal, said, he said to him, I am Semite more than you because my eyes are brown and yours are green. So they recorded this in their letter and raised it as one of the questions. And also chasing people and monitoring what they write on their posts in social media. Like some people wrote some people wrote posts or published posts like Israel is an apartheid system. Has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. They're all quoted here. But what struck me most is the university is called for a hearing at the Congress, and one of the things they asked the university, has the university investigated the following things: the activities of Columbia Students for Palestine, and some even Columbia Law students, Columbia Social Workers for Palestine. Has the university investigated the activities of these groups? Has the university investigated posts by Columbia students? So the university has to monitor all the posts by all its students. This is unbelievable. The university has now to monitor all the posts of all the students in the social media and write a report. This is a private university by students, faculty, staff, and other social medias targeting Jews, Israelis, Israel, Zionists, or Zionism. So anything which pertains to Israel and Israelis, for example, Netanyahu is an Israeli, so you cannot touch him in any way. And now we go back to our talk. I am confident that eventually this will not come to pass because this is a political wave. There's a lot of persistence and there is lobbies at the Congress who try to push, and these members of parliament, the vast majority of them are not very bright, so some they are stupid. I know how parliamentarians and parliaments work, and this has been going on for many years now. But in the meanwhile, people will be harmed, students, faculty members, and there will be real attempts they will come to regret many years ago on what happened to Gaza. The starvation and other crimes are covered by some demonstrations in Paris on anti-Semitism. Jürgen Habermas warns against anti-Semitism when there is a genocide taking place. Where is this anti-Semitism? All the examples are anecdotal. Like the Congress, the respected Congress, only mentions one physical assault without even proving that this was a result of anti-Semitism, but simply because the victim of the assault is a Jewish student, so therefore it's assumed to be of an anti-Semite nature. So what are the manifestations of anti-Semitism in Europe now, in the West? None. So this is merely an attempt to turn things on their heads and to cover up for the main issue, which is the sacrifices of the people in Gaza, and to cover up for Israeli criminality. So the situation is very clear. Who are the perpetrators of the crime and who are the victims of the crime? And the cover-up is the objective here. As for the Palestinian cause and its relationship to anti-Semitism, this is what the Israelis have been using right from the start, especially using the Holocaust and Nazism in the propaganda prior to the 1967 war, and after that war, this has spread widely, and the Israelis described Jamal Abdel Nasser as Hitler, then Yasser Arafat as Hitler, then Saddam Hussein as Hitler, and they want to repeat what the Nazis have done. Anti-Semitism, dear colleagues, is a European phenomenon. Anti-Semitism. I don't mean hatred of minorities, hatred of Jews, Christians, or Muslims. And to call Jewish people Semites, and the phenomena of anti-Semitism is a European phenomena. Yes, has it reached our countries? Yes, but it was imported on the margins of the Arab nationalist movement and sometimes the Islamist trends. This was at times of crises when the Arabs thought the Jews are controlling the world. But even at at times when religious minorities were pressurized. This was not confined to Jews only, and it happened certain times. And what happened in Europe in the Middle Ages, and then when it reached the anti-Semitism in the 19th century, the first Der Bund der Antisemiten was the League of Anti-Semitists in Europe. Wilhelm Marr, a German journalist, wrote a book about how the Germanic species will be victorious over the Jews. This was dealt with as a scientific theory. This is based on the theory of that different ethnicities are genetically different, and by and large in biology, which impacted anthropology in the second half of the 19th century, there was a worldview based that Darwin, for example, to a certain extent, looked at the people as different ethnicities. And there are Darwinists after him who did that, like some, for example, are closer to be civilized or higher civilization, etc. The Arab and Muslim world did not know this at all. They were completely away from these things. This is a totally different and a separate world altogether. And the first source of anti-Semitism was a religious one, that the Jews crucified Jesus Christ, and simple people have always been susceptible to this kind of agitation. And we have some people call the Jews the killers of prophets. This is among simple people, and sometimes it has spilled over from Europe to other civilizations. And the second thing was a theory of people like the Nazis hated Judaism for many reasons, but because the Nazism believed that Jews are spread in all other species, and therefore they are against the Nazi way of thinking. And also there is the classification by the leftists and socialists that in the struggle against the capitalists, and then their hatred is focused at the bourgeoisie and the owner of the capital, like money lenders, etc., like in the feudal system. And so therefore they focus their hatred. This is a place where the nationalists, socialists, and capitalists and class systems all interact together, and looked at Judaism from this point of view. The three sources for anti-Semitism are totally European. And trying to blame that or associate it with Arabs and Muslims is a transgression against them. And the Zionist movement is a European movement. They came to our country, and for the Europeans this was a source for comfort. Why? Because it shifts away the blame or the accusation from them to Muslims, and people become preoccupied with anti-Semitism. I think anti-Semitism in Europe continues, but not against the Jews, but against the Arabs and Muslims. So instead of standing up to that, we are focusing our energy into some sort of a perceived anti-Semitism for political reasons. And there is a lot which can be done, but we do not want to take too much of your time. But maybe on later occasions, and maybe you can publish something about this. The Zionist movement started in Europe, and it was impacted by European nationalists and imitating this nationalist discourse, especially in Central Europe in the 19th century. Anti-Zionism, however, is in essence and is not Arab or Muslim. It's a Jewish phenomenon. Why? Why anti-Zionism is a Jewish thing? Because the beginning of the struggle had nothing to do with Palestine. Before they even settled in Palestine, before they started standing against colonial settler activities, and when they realized that they cannot achieve the aims of Zionism unless they colonialize a country with has a majority of non-Jewish majority. How can they achieve that without settler colonialism? And this struggle, to a large extent, still goes on in Israel. So anti-Zionism is not my definition. The Jewish people, some Jewish people, called themselves this before they even got to our country. Before that, at that time, there was a majority of anti-Zionism because they defined Judaism in a different way. They changed the concept of who was a Jew. Three fundamental reasons or sources for this, for the Jewish hatred of Zionism. This is published first as a religious one. This is a fundamental thing. Now is on the margins. In those days, it was the main trend, the mainstream in the religious, Jewish religious trends was anti-Zionism. Why? Because they turned the religion of Judaism from a religion of God's chosen people to a political. There are some Hebrew terms I will not mention here now, like from a group of people chosen by God, and there is discussion on why they were chosen. It's not meant by that they're chosen because they are better than others, but they are burdened with more responsibilities. From people chosen by God to a people like any other people, and this is not acceptable to many Jews. Even the state, the idea of the state is a secularist idea. For them, the idea of the state it only happens when the salvation of God arrives on earth through the second appearance of Christ. Nothing to do with the state. So if there is discussion that the diaspora, the Jews in diaspora, represent a message from God to other people. This is the religious aspect. Only one marginal trend later on has established an organization which combined Judaism with Zionism. The second source is the socialist and communist Jews, which they were for example, the Bolsheviks were accused of having as Jewish. The Politburo members were by and large Jews, as it's reported, until Stalin came and purged them all because he had some anti-Semitism roots in his thinking. And also, they, they thought, the socialists and communists Jews thought the salvation of the Jewish people is through establishing a socialist state like any other people. And this group has formed a very potent and formidable power because minorities, in essence, look for, because of the fact that they are a minority, they look for movements which transcend their numbers. This was not a marginal trend because Jews in trade unions were they had a powerful representation. So this formed some trends which is not the subject of our talk now. So the other source is the liberal elitist hatred of Zionism because most Jewish liberals and democratic Jews who believed in the Renaissance in Germany and France in the 19th century and in the idea of citizenship and citizenry, they considered that Zionism is an obstacle to them being equal citizens and places barriers on their assimilation with the rest of the society. So if the Third French Republic and the state in Germany and other countries in Europe, then Judaism will not an obstacle hindering their equality. But if an idea comes says Judaism is not just a religion, it's a nationality too, then you will be placing barriers. And on all the new Hegelians after Marx, they all theorize in this manner. But we're talking about books, philosophical theorization in the philosophy of democracy and state building. So therefore, three main causes, they're all Jewish reasons for anti-Semitism. So for Palestinians, if Zionism was Christian or Hindu or whatever, wanted to come to Palestine, a country of a majority of Arabs, and turn it into a state for the Jews, they would stand against it. The French colonialism officially were Christians, but when they colonialized Algeria, it was all the energies focused on fighting them, not on religious grounds, but the animosity is not against Jews because they are Jews, like anti-Semitism in Europe. It's because of their Jewish features or traits and for what they did politically. So therefore, the Palestinian hatred of Zionism is a different kind of Zionism or animosity, different than European anti-Semitism. It has nothing to do with Jewishness. It is to do with colonializing their own country. The role of religion applies to both the colonializer and the colonialized. The British in the Sudan made amongst its chief objectives to stop the spread of Islam and the propagation of the message of Islam in Africa. So tell me then, why French secularists use Jesuit missionary campaigns and showed interest in churches? Inside France, they were secularists. Outside of France, they are missionaries. This applies to even social affairs. You know, in our countries, how religion is used, even in our countries, and it becomes the ultimate objective in some cases. But this is not, in essence, hating Jews. These attempts are a transgression against us, against our culture, against our just cause in Palestine, because it's a just struggle against colonialism. For this reason, in the definitions of anti-Semitism is settler colonialism, but they do not allow you to use this term because this reminds people of this issue. I just want to finish time. I hope you're out of time. I'm getting a bit tired. I want to draw the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. This is an official organization which holds meetings, set a term, a definition of anti-Semitism, and definition of Zionism. This is not the job of such organizations, but they came up with a definition. The definition is not bad, in fact, but the problem, like in 2016, they had a Bucharest conference, which the American administration adopted it officially. The State Department has it's on its website. This definition seems at the first instance that harmless. Anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestation of anti-Semitism can be directed at Jewish and non-Jewish individuals and their properties, religious facilities, etc. Where is the problem here? Once they set forth this definition, this is section A of the definition, some activists had a section B, which has 11 anecdotal examples or models which provide some guidance for combating anti-Semitism. 7 of them mentions Israel. So one of these very dangerous examples to describe the Israeli project as a racist endeavor. I don't know why they use the word endeavor. They describe the establishment of Israel. Now it's the existence of Israel is a racist endeavor, something not very accurate, but also dealing with Israel and to expect from it what cannot be expected from other countries. They call this double standards. Amazing that you don't ask of other countries to do the same. The Israelis, by the way, keep repeating this and also raising the question of the double loyalty of Jews. You cannot criticize the AIPAC, for example. For example, when one of the things I asked the Columbia University, why are you criticizing AIPAC? Because criticizing the AIPAC means double loyalty. It is registered as an Israeli lobby. The lobbies are registered in the United States as to whom they have their loyalties. In the fact they said AIPAC is the Jewish lobby. Use the term Israeli lobby. Now you're not even allowed to say that. So what can you call it? This is, they're trying to cleanse the language in order to deprive you of the ability to discuss anything and always place you in a self-defense position. And this is what we should avoid at all costs. This is a very essential point here. By the way, many countries in the Bucharest meeting opposed the section B as part of the definition, but they insisted section A is one definition, section B is part and parcel of it. In order to discuss this, we say if anti-Semitism, and this requires a lot of Arab effort and a lot of financing, because the judiciary system in the West depletes your resources completely. If anyone is subjected to these accusations, you cannot really face these organizations. They are very well organized, very well financed, and they can last the course for many years. And for this reason, the judiciary system remains more neutral and more plausible and credible. There is no other resort you can use, because the judiciary is still independent, relatively speaking. If anti-Semitism is a defamation which leads to a physical, material harm, it should also, those who accuse us of defamation and anti-Semitism, we should act against those who accuse us of it. We should turn from defense to attack. So if anti-Semitism is so harmful, if it's used unjustly, and it can harm me if it was not justly, then can cost me my job, my social standing, I can be harmed physically. So this should be turned into against those who accuse it. So the Arabs and Muslims in the United States have done wonderful. They've taken very big strides in this since 9/11, and they established many organizations which help people. And the Israelis are surprised a little bit that people have chutzpah in Yiddish, the aggressiveness to respond. Chutzpah in Yiddish, and it means brazen behavior. When you say chatzuf or chutzpah in Hebrew, it means is a brazen. In Israel, this is a virtue. This is the only civilization which considers brazen behavior and blatant behavior as a virtue. And this tells you a lot, by the way. In one of the Israeli advertisements of a beer called Maccabi, Maccabi is an Israeli chutzpah, is Israeli brazenness. Anyway, now they are surprised, really surprised, that the organization of this responsive measures against their actions through alliances with some liberal organizations who are also harmed by Jewish attacks. But we should not only confine our response to this, because lawsuits can take time and resources. We should also turn this into lawsuits against those who accuse us of us, and also to engage on the core issues and the essence, not on the freedom of expression. We must discuss what is genocide. When I say from the river to the sea, does this amount to anti-Semitism? Does it amount to genocide? We have to leave the form and get into the substance. It's not the question of whether I have the right. Not just that. It is right, but not only my right to say so, but this is right to say so. And on this basis, we get into settlements. When I say I have the right to say this, and it's like, I'm not discussing my right to express that. I'm discussing what I'm saying is right, so that my freedom of expression does not turn into a question over freedom of expression. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you. Don't have no time for questions because of the delay starting this session. We want to continue the agenda. I thank Dr. Azmi for this important, and I would like to thank all the respondents and all the colleagues who worked hard in organizing Hamida Durzade, Miriam Houari, and Ashhab, النغم العقاد, معتز الناظر, Umar Khalid, and all our colleagues in the social media platforms. And we wish you a pleasant stay and a successful conference.